welcome back to Honest Voice. I'm Todd.
And I'm Carolsue. Today we're going to be tackling the subject of anger, not as a problem we're trying to get rid of, but as a signal that we want to understand.
Yeah, like we've been talking about with our other podcasts, is that things that happen to you, it's all data. People that say they made me mad or they ticked me off, those kind of things. The real thing that's going on there is that they did something, and based on the way you perceived it, you decided that that was something that made you angry. But what happens over time is that we reinforce that over and over again, and it becomes part of us. So whereas it might have started off with certain things that people do really tick me off, now it just happens.
Yep.
So it feels like a natural reaction. It feels like, no, they do make me angry. You know, and it's probably why I don't have a lot of friends, because I tell people, you know, it's a choice.
It's a choice.
You even
do like
knew
that
why
one.
that's
Yeah,
my
I do.
favorite. It's my favorite phrase. It's a choice.
It's a choice.
But
He says it to the TV sometimes. Just
I do. Yeah, we'll watch shows and they're like, "Wow, that's really making me angry." That's your choice. Yeah. But that comes later, actually. So, you know, we're very, very empathic about the fact that, you know, what our journey was 15 years ago, certain things that used to set me off and get me very upset just really have no impact, which is once again why we're here, because if we can get through this, if we can change our mindset, the way we perceive certain scenarios, then we're hoping that you can too. And based on our feedback from students that we've taught in our trainings, they say they've used these tips and they've been really, really effective, especially when it comes to the home environment, because it's amazing how much programming, what I call programming, but it's, you know, influence that happens over and over and over again. And eventually everything becomes second nature. Unfortunately, the bad also does that as much as the good. So this is all about training yourself to not react anymore. And, you know, when you think about it, when you look at anger just overall, like I said in a previous podcast, it's a secondary emotion in most cases. Now, if you're being attacked, fight, flight, or freeze.
Yep.
I'm glad I didn't say that fast. It's not a choice. It's a reaction. It's happening. When you're about to be attacked in some capacity, in a real capacity, a physical capacity, they're evolutionarily wired to respond. Your respiration increases to get oxygen to the parts of the body that need it. Your blood flow increases. Your adrenaline starts pumping. Norepinephrine, epinephrine kick in, and you're basically a semi-super person for the moment. Right. Unfortunately, when those situations occur that we have now, what we've done is we've taken a lot of ego things that we feel about ourselves, our opinions that are important to us, and we've connected it to that survival thing. It's like, when you disagree with me, you're attacking my opinion, and that freaks me out. I don't know what to do now, because what if I'm made to look like I'm less than, which is something that we use as a catch-all phrase for making me look bad, making me look stupid, whatever it may be. It's just less than looking perfect.
Exactly. So what's happened is that what started as an evolutionary response has morphed into an ego protection. But what we know about anger that makes it feel like it's hard to control, even though we have a lot of tips and tricks to help you manage that, is that once it is triggered, it's fast out of the gate. It's really fast. And so if you don't have kind of practice tools at the ready to help you manage it, then it can feel like it's completely beyond your control. The good news is it isn't. It just feels that way.
Exactly. Unless, once again, survival. So we're going to go ahead, and that way I don't have to do a disclaimer for every time we talk about it. We're going to just say that being in a survival situation, anger is a useful tool.
Very good.
And that's it. We're going to push that aside. Now we're going to talk about everything to where anger is not useful. And really, when you think about it, it's not useful in any type of communication whatsoever. Now, as a signal for yourself, it's data. If something upsets you, it makes you angry, it's up to us to control it instead of let it control us. And so where everybody is right now is it controls you. So just think about this from a social perspective. We see people who get angry as passionate or as controlling the room or as strong or knowledgeable even. Like even that anger can influence you to think that they're right when they're wrong.
Oh, that's so true.
Yeah, but when you break it down, it's actually sort of a weakness. First of all, we talked about last time, we mentioned it, that in most cases, since we're not talking about survival anymore, anger is a fear-based emotion. We're protecting something. We're usually protecting some kind of fear, some kind of shame, and feeling powerless. I don't mean to sound sexist, but you know, I see this in a lot of men because most men are conditioned to be a certain type of macho or strong, or you know, and they've created basically these social behaviors that men have to aspire to. And most people don't ask why. Most people
Yeah.
are like, why are we acting like that when it's really not helpful? So think about this, just from a rational point of view. For those of you that, are throwing stuff at the TV, please don't do that. You can just turn it off. You don't have to watch it.
That's true.
But think about this. When you're angry and you want to think of that as a strength and it's controlling you, anybody can do that. But in situations that make you angry, can you control yourself? You can't argue with this. You can physically identify that to be controlled by an emotion is not as strong, better way of putting it, not as strong as being able to have a choice in every situation as to how you're going to react. So the things that make you angry, that's information. This bothers me. I mean, there's so many social issues right now that make us angry, and we want to funnel that into passion, and that's where that passion becomes this face and this loudness. But if you think about every situation that you get in where you're angry and you get loud, there is an alternative. There is always an alternative. And this is one of the sort of the jokes, because when we're doing crisis intervention training, we're sort of captive audience, and especially when we're dealing with law enforcement and they're all armed. So telling a bunch of law enforcement individuals that your anger is a weakness, it's not a good survival skill for us.
Right.
Let's just put it that way.
That's right.
No, we're just joking, not saying. But we get the faces. What are you talking about? Or who are you talking to? Or how dare you say that? Being that we are trying to help. We're not calling it out. We're not insulting it. We're identifying it because, once again, we want to keep this is one thing we do want to say over and over again. We're not talking from on high. This is us. We used to react. We used to be defensive. We used to get very upset at things. We used to walk away from arguments. We used to slam doors. We just discovered that it literally has no useful property when it comes to communication. I mean, think about it. Let's think of what was one thing that you can think of that used to make you angry. Traffic. Yeah. Okay, there's a perfect example. And we actually got a whole show on road rage.
We do.
Because road rage is very illogical when you break it down, but we'll get to that later. But see, traffic, let's just put it this way. One of my biggest coping skills is that when I'm fearful of something or irritated with something, I will think to myself, how does somebody else handle this? Or if somebody else can do this, then I can do it. So we live our lives looking at everything through more than one perspective. What is another way of handling this? So with traffic, if you were programmed before, you're frustrated because it's not going the way you want it to go.
The way I expect it to go.
Exactly.
Right.
And this is a great, great opportunity to identify expectations. Expectations are like our worst enemy sometimes. Because we create this perfection, this idea of perfection, and then when the situation that we are dealing with doesn't meet that perfection, then we get angry. So this is what I call, we created our whole problem. We looked at it, we decided it should be perfect, and we decided it's not, and we decided that we don't like it, and this is how it's going to be. We call these looking at the situation, try to reframe it in such a way that it's not so impactful. This is not that toxic positivity where your whole house falls down and we walk up to you and say, well, at least you're still alive. No, your house fell down. We respect that. Just in your normal day-to-day stuff, traffic and how it impacts you, it is literally a choice. You can look at it and say, well, I've got good tunes in the car. I'm glad I've got Bluetooth now, and I can listen to any song that I want on my collection. So this is actually, I'm just going to kick back. Or maybe I'll take a scenic route. See, there's an alternative fix right there. You came up with a different solution. Rather than dealing with this, I'm going to go the back way today. It's going to take an extra 10 minutes, but it's not going to take an hour. As what if I sat here? So see, those were simple reframes before you even had to get into getting upset about something.
Yeah. So to talk a little bit about anger and why it feels so big, it's always about more than the surface conversation or the surface incident. So what can look like an overreaction might be an old wound being poked. It might be that this has touched something that you thought was healed or that you hadn't thought about in a while. Maybe traffic made me feel like, well, if I get to work late, then I'm not giving a good example as a supervisor, and my staff are going to think that they can just come and go as they please.
And there's an added variable. So that's a different thing. Rather than just I'm just heading home, there's no pressing issues. So that's an added variable. So you not only have to deal with the traffic, you're dealing with this added variable that you just brought up now.
Sometimes a little reflection can help understand why the anger reaction came up. Sometimes it is about more than just the moment that you're in right now. So it helps to understand those things, because understanding is how we start to regain control over these things that seem reactive and seem out of our control, because they're not. They are choices.
Right.
We just have to realize that. Yeah.
And one of the big buzzwords today is triggers. Everybody talks about triggers. The term trigger is being used as a catch-all for just about everything that people don't want to deal with at the moment. First of all, with the triggers dealing with anger, triggers are the result of that programming. What has happened to you in the past has caused some kind of memory that sits in there. I mean, maybe if you're in a situation where traffic led to you being in a terrible accident, that's going to take more work than just making your own decision. But in a lot of anger management programs, which I've actually taught, they work a lot on triggers, but I'm into more of changing the behaviors, like finding alternative ways to handle a situation. And I first came up with this, it actually came to me in a class when somebody was saying they were trying to push their issue. Like, no, this just makes me angry. There's no alternative way of looking at it. And I said, okay, let me ask you this question. If I could give you $100 for not being angry at something, like say I brought it out, whatever that issue is that you're dealing with at the moment, if I told you that if you find another way to handle this where it's not making you explosive or out of control or losing your temper, what would you do? And there's always an answer. There's always a way to say, you know, I'm not going to let that trigger impact me anymore. I realize now that actually my big deal is that something bad happened during traffic, but that's in the past. And I can choose to look at it a different way, or I can choose to keep on reinforcing that trigger and getting angry every time I'm faced with traffic. So an alternative would literally be that was something that happened before, and maybe that's something I need to deal with, like seeing a therapist or something like that. But the issue really isn't with the traffic, it's the grief or the loss or the impact of the accident that occurred. So anger is rarely what you see on the surface. Even it's rarely what people are expressing in the moment. Like, say if Carolsue came to me with a previous example, like we said, you never spend any time with me. You know, it started off with, in our previous episode, of, I just don't think we're spending enough time together. But what if she got so fed up because we're in conflict all the time that she just came at me and said, you don't even love me, you don't even care, you don't even spend any time with me. That's something that's deeper than just the not spending time. And that's why, you know, whoever has the floor has the problem is a really effective means of combating that. But what we have to get to is what has come to this point that our distance or our not spending enough time together has actually elevated it to an expression of anger. So in those situations, we watch a lot of movies. Yes. There's this one scene in Limitless. When Bradley Cooper first takes the Limitless pill, he's walking up the stairs and his landlord's wife is just screaming at him. She's yelling at him. She's insulting him. She's calling him every name in the book. He's loser. He's, you know, worthless and all this stuff. And finally he just stops and he goes, what's really going on? And that is really like the substance of most angry outbursts. It's either programming that has gone on for a long time and it's become habitual. So that's just how you react and you don't even know why anymore. You just, if I don't like it, I'm going to get loud. Especially if you've been practicing that in your household and it shuts down the other people in the household. That way you don't have to deal with conflict anymore, which, you know, like we've already identified, it's a deficiency or a weakness. Once again, if you can't handle the problems in your own household, you're really not taking care of the rest of your family unit, you know, because they have these emotional needs, and shifting them to, like I heard in my household, why do I have to get into this family stuff? You know, I provide and I put a roof over her head and all that kind of stuff I used to hear. It's like, yeah, you do that and that's great, but you're still mean. So, so can we applaud for what you do for us, but can we try to find ways
you to stop?
Can you stop traumatizing kids or or traumatizing me, you know, whatever it may be. But those are separate incidents. So we have to figure out what's a different way to engage in this kind of situation. So we look for reframes, we look for alternatives. So whereas a lot of therapeutic interventions, and I've been in therapy, so I know sort of the tack that some therapists take, and we work with a lot of therapists. So we get a lot of therapeutic feedback. But like we keep saying, we're not therapists, we're trainers. So a lot of people go into the, you know, let's dig into your history and find out what those triggers are. But we found that that's a good therapeutic intervention. But for a training purpose, we've also found out that our blue and orange scenario works pretty effectively when it comes to anger. So whatever you're thinking of in that moment that makes you angry, what's something else you could think about? And it's really effective. And we've done this. And like I said, the $100 thing, we've had people that are adamant about, like, no, this is me. This is how I am. That's just the way I am. People don't like it. I'm not here to make friends, all that kind of stuff. Those are really cries from people that don't have very good communication skills, that's their fallback. And that's what they've been programmed. And your behavior is always your responsibility, but your historical way of handling things is what you've been given. And what you've been given was also given to the people that gave it to you. So it isn't about where it started. It isn't about saying, this is the way my parents acted and I'm not going to admit to that because that would mean I'm saying something bad about my parents. This is all about where we are now, how it happened, just for data, and finding ways to untangle it.
Yeah. So we find that the best route to manage something that feels out of our control is to learn as much about it as possible so that we recognize that there are things we can do and steps we can take to manage that behavior so that it's not out of control. Because the truth is that, again, unless there is a pterodactyl coming for your house, most everything else can be managed.
Saber-toothed tigers.
Also saber-toothed tigers, yes.
Yeah, evolutionarily speaking.
Right. So one of the biggest tools we can possibly use for something that feels immediate, like that anger trigger feels immediate. So our best way to combat that is with the pause.
This is where pause should come up. Maybe I can do that with the video.
That's
and
a good idea.
Angel noises can come
Definitely
up.
some angel singing. Yep.
Yeah. Because this is one of the most effective tools.
It really is.
And it isn't about being quiet. It's not pretending to be calm. It's not buying time or anything like that.
Not pushing down the feelings.
No, it's literally centering yourself. And like I said before, rather than let the emotion control you, you control the emotion.
Exactly.
And it's just like, all right, this is making me angry, but yelling is not going to fix it. Scaring the person that I'm with is not going to fix it. Posturing with somebody is not going to fix it.
I'm sorry, what was that again? Thank you.
Yeah, I don't even feel comfortable when I do that. But that kind of stuff is not going to de-escalate the situation. But when it comes to egos, it's very difficult sometimes because this is some deep, deep programming. But think about it. In your family unit, what do you want to be known for? Do you want to be remembered for controlling the situation and protecting your loved ones and making them feel safe? Or do you want to be known for the person that blows up because you just don't like what somebody said? I mean, and really that's what it amounts to in some cases.
It does. I can tell you that my colleagues at work, I've been fortunate enough to work at the same place for a really long time with lots of amazing people, and they know that my pause looks like a walk. So if I've heard some news that is very stressful or is going to impact my team in a negative way, I'll usually just get up and walk around the building, walk around the floor, walk around the conference room or whatever it is, because that's my way of slowing myself down, grounding in a way. I mean, you're walking, you're noticing your feet on the floor, noticing your breathing, and it lets me get my thoughts together so that I can avoid any sort of response that will look negative or angry.
Yeah, that's a really good tool. I keep a note on my phone. So in our notes, and you have Notepad or notes depending upon the type of phone you have. And I have a wellness.
That's right.
Yes. And I share this with all
really good idea.
Crisis intervention team when I'm teaching it. I keep a wellness list because when you're irrational, when you're angry, you won't think of things that make you feel good.
That's true. You can't access them in your brain at that moment.
So I keep a list of my favorite episodes of The Office, my favorite episodes of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, any kind of comedy show that we like. Sometimes it might just be a great distractor, like the Marvel movies. Sometimes I just want to watch a Marvel movie and become immersed in that, where I'm now completely distracted that the irritation doesn't bother me anymore. But one thing I do want to stress that we bring up in CIT, you said you take a walk. Now, when you take a walk, there's a tool that you use when you take a walk, and it's mindfulness.
Mindfulness,
yeah. I forgot that. It's not some kind of guru thing. Mindfulness just means focusing on a topic so all the noise stops. That's all mindfulness is. It's not mystical. It's not, you don't have to have a shaved, bald-headed, well, anyways, you don't have to have some kind of Zen master come into your house and teach you how to do this. It's literally focusing on a positive topic. Because think about it. It's real easy for Carolsue to walk out and march around that building when she's trying to clear her head going, wow, I can't believe those people are doing that stuff. I mean, you can ruminate while you're taking a walk. So once again, two different ways of handling exactly the same thing. It looks the same, but where your mind is pretty significant.
Yes.
Because you can literally reinforce those angry feelings even when you're taking that walk. So you have to focus on, it's better what we call grounding.
Yeah, right? Absolutely, yeah. So whatever your pause looks like, different for all of us, we want to differentiate. We want to make sure that pause is a mindful pause. It's not pretending to be calm when you don't feel calm. It's not bottling up or shoving anger further down so you can pretend you don't feel it. It's actually just buying a little bit of time so that your calm mind can take over.
Exactly.
Yeah.
After a while, it takes a few seconds, and like I explained in a previous episode, I have physically expressed this. Somebody's got me a little agitated, and I'm like, okay, buddy, let's start over. And that's what you're doing there also, is you're modeling that for somebody else.
Yes.
Yeah. If you're showing that you can do that pause, you're literally teaching somebody else to do that pause as well. And everybody's got a different technique. Some people need to count to 5. Some people, sipping water, it's a great distractor for you because you're stimulating your body in a certain way. You're, once again, keeping that thinking in the frontal cortex, so you're not going to the reaction area. So taking a sip of water, or just saying, I need a moment.
Yes.
Because especially in the beginning, these are new skills. So work them. First of all, I call it sort of like the 3 phases of progression. The first time after you get this information, you're going to get angry and you're going to express yourself in the old way. And you're going to go, oh man, if I would have just taken that pause. Okay, well, that's phase 1. And that's good.
It is.
You're working on it. Yeah. So at least you have a new mindset that you may not have caught in time because this is new, but you're working it. And there is no failure here. It's just progress and growth. That's all we're looking for. There's no perfection. And then the second phase is where you might start to express it, where you're like, okay. That's phase 2. And then phase 3 is where you've got it down now. You've now initiated the pause, even if it's subconsciously, even if it's
imperceptible,
not noticeable.
Very good.
By other people. It might just look, and I think that's where we've gotten to our point where that our pause is not noticeable because it's part of our programming now.
Yeah.
So it's almost like we don't really engage until we pause now. It's almost like our preparation for every kind of stressful situation. So in these situations, when you pause, name what you feel. This is going to be very, very new for you.
Yeah.
And you got to practice it. And I highly recommend that you practice it in the mirror.
Oh, yeah.
Tell yourself what you're feeling. You can say, I'm hurt right now and I don't know how to express it, so let me get a hold of this. For some reason, like with previous generations, correcting them when they're wrong, even when they're wrong, when they're completely wrong, just saying, no, grandpa, that's not how it's done anymore. A lot of that old style perceives that as disrespect.
That's
like
right.
you don't tell an older person they said something wrong,
No, you do not.
even when they're completely wrong. That might feel like disrespect, but correcting somebody it's an act of courage and it's an act of love. You want them to have the right information, and we are honest voice. So, we have to do that. But we're going to also talk about ways to do that where you're not just stomping all over. It's one thing to,
That's true.
We say that honesty without kindness is cruel. So when people say, I'm not trying to be a rude
jerk,
person or a jerk, they are. They know exactly what they're doing. Because I'm about to tell you something that's going to be jerky sounding,
Right.
for lack of a better phrase.
I like that. Jerky.
Because there is a kinder way of doing it. Now, I also want to say on the flip side, when it comes to sensitive information, this is where impact and intent, sometimes the variables shift. And I have dealt with this with people in the past where they've gotten very upset. And I'm like, I pulled the thing that I told our kid, would you rather me lie? When they're telling me, I don't appreciate you telling me that. And usually what they come back with, well, there could have been a better way you could have told me that. And I would ask, what's a way that I could have told you that you would have been receptive to? Because sometimes the material is so personal from their perspective.
Yeah.
They feel it so personal that no matter how you frame it, they're going to get upset.
Yep.
They're going to get embarrassed, which once again goes back to that fear-based anger.
Yeah.
They're going to get embarrassed. They're going to feel shame, and it's going to come out as anger. But stay comfortable and confident, with the fact that you tried your hardest to be empathic, kind, put a lot of qualifiers in that. I probably shouldn't have drank coffee before we did this. But anyway, I put a lot of qualifiers in it. Like, look, I do not want to hurt your feelings right now, but I have to tell you something that may upset you. In fact, I've gone so far. Actually, we had a supervisor that was highly reactive, could not tell that person anything. And I actually used one time, the answer that I have to give you is going to make you angry. So do you still want to hear it? And they actually said no and walked off. I was like, okay, well,
all right.
Yeah. So the person did not want the truth, and they just trained us all to not tell them anything. So I offered. I'm like, you usually get angry when you hear something you don't like. Do you still want the rest of the information? They were like, no, and walked off. So the point we're trying to make is, you have to consider that kindness without honesty is performance. Yeah. Usually when people are kind, it's like, oh, no, that doesn't bother me. You're not really being truthful. So we call that performance. And you're going to hear that word a lot. Yeah. Even anger is performance because you're masking the truth in those moments. You're creating an emotional response that is going to affect the other person. it's performance because in a lot of cases you're trying to get the other person to back down.
Yep.
You're trying to get them on the defensive. You're trying to get them to agree with you. A lot of people do that. They'll start, well, why don't you agree with it? I mean, especially right now in our political climate, that is a big issue.
It
is that, we don't respect each other's opinions, and we severely get offended by people having different opinions. But that's part of the reason why we're here also, is because society is like really gotten away from the truth. There's a lot of people that you just can't talk to about anything in some cases without them getting upset. So we say kindness without honesty is performance, but honesty without kindness is just cruel. Telling somebody something just to be mean, all that stuff that goes on with the clapbacks and the call outs and all that stuff. With this newfound knowledge, I want you to examine those. When you get on Facebook, or if you get on, whatever your social media is, sort of look at those things and ask yourself, what are they really doing? If you are revenge driven and you get some kind of joy out of that, then this is probably not the podcast for you.
Right.
But once again, I have to say that revenge and wanting to get people back is also programming. If you got punished and it was personal, if you heard the words like, why are you doing this to me while you're being punished by a parent, they've created a personalization especially from a child's point of view. A child perceives that as just basically getting physically hurt because of something that you don't like. And that's how like a 5, 6, 7-year-old interprets that. There is no lesson to be learned in these situations, and I'm not trying to just push the anti-corporal punishment thing, but just from a psychological perspective. And a lot of those things being traumatic experiences in my life, I remember them very clearly, even at my age. And they did not teach me what they intended, especially at that age. Your understanding in that moment is nothing but fear and survival. It's like, am I going to die with this whipping, or what is going to happen to me?
And it's the absolute truth that when you are terrified, your brain cannot learn. You're in the amygdala part, the fear-based part, and you can't absorb new information when you're terrified. So it's not effective. So, talking a little bit about the importance of daily practice. We're changing what feels like a habit, what feels like something that we haven't had any control over for a long time. So the best way to learn these new tools to get ahead of anger and have better reactions is to practice.
One of the things that we always say, especially with law enforcement, because they're training oriented, is listen to the scenarios of other people and put yourself in those situations. When one of your friends comes in and says, me and my wife had a fight, think in your mind, well, what did you say? What did she say? What did you say? And then think, this is a better thing that could have been said. I'm not saying that you should give that advice in those moments. It's better just to listen.
Just thinking.
Just think. Put yourself in those scenarios. Now, one thing that we preach is calm is something that has to be built now. This is a new behavior. It's a new set of perspectives that you're going to be filtering your thoughts through now that you're not used to.
And the purpose of training, the purpose of practice, is because when a high stress situation comes upon you, you're not going to be able to, oh, wait, they said that thing on that podcast. Let me go back and think what that was. You're going to fall back on your training. So we want it to become second nature for you to be, if you're listening to other people's conversations and you're thinking, what's a better alternative? If you can train your mind to be in that mindset, then it is much easier for you to divert what feels like an involuntary anger response and remember to do that pause.
And just keep in mind that when you're triggered, when you have new situations, your old reactions are going to return automatically. So you have to practice this calmness. It has to be a focus. It has to be that I will focus on the color orange in these situations where I'd rather react to the color blue. It's really important to continue that, especially if it's been, some of us have been practicing one way for decades.
True.
If you're over your 20s, you were programmed at 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 based on the modeling that you were around, the exposure you had to different stressors. You could have had a perfectly good household, but you could have had a really mean teacher in school. And those reactions are going to train you, and vice versa. You could have had really good teachers, but you had one reactive parent, and that's what programmed you? Because what happens is children don't usually learn from lectures or lessons or anything like that. They learn from observation.
Yes.
When they see a situation, when they see a parent or an adult react to a situation, then they're like, okay, that's how we react when we're angry. We kick things, we punch a hole through a wall. All these things are, I hate to say it, they're choices.
They are.
They're choices. But once, of course, you've passed that threshold of anger, then you're on autopilot till you calm yourself down. Anger takes over.
Yeah. So we know it can feel automatic without practice, but with practice, you're going to find that calm is easier to get to. You're going to find that awareness shows up sooner. You start to notice those trigger feelings. Like for me, sometimes my neck will start to get really red and I can feel it getting warm, and I'll know, okay, I need to take a quick breather, I need to step out for a second or take a sip of water. So this helps us regain control. And when we have control, then anger doesn't have as much control.
Yeah, and when those situations occur, and this is something we teach in crisis intervention, like if it's not family members, if it's you're dealing with somebody at work or something like that, some people have this uncontrollable smile when they're anxious. They're like,
True. Yeah.
And that can make somebody be like, what the heck are you smiling at? This is serious.
Not funny.
Or you get that red rash, and
Yes.
I get that too. Just own it. Just say, yeah, this is a little bit of a stressful situation. I'm just trying to work through it. It's just how I normally. I also sweat profusely. Like if there's conflict, it will literally start beating up on my head. If there's real conflict and I know that the person's not receptive to feedback, that makes me sweat a lot. I think I sweat also when I know somebody in authority is like lying to me.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm doing everything I can not to engage in it, which is bad because sweating is just, it just makes it worse. Like, what are you sweating for now? It's like, because you're lying? But you can't really say that. So it becomes this perpetual sweat thing where I usually find something creative to get out of the conversation and leave the room.
Go find a paper towel.
But those are decades of programming. I don't know if I'll ever get over the sweating thing because those are deep, deep triggers when you've had like daily exposure to anger. You know, how I grew up, it was almost daily. Is definitely minimum weekly. So, I was being yelled at or punished in some capacity.
I'm glad you brought that up because I do want to talk about, for those of you listening who feel like I truly I don't know how to get control of this. And if you did grow up in a really violent environment, or if you were exposed to violence or anger, verbal or physical, for a long time, then it may be worth working with someone to get some of the really core foundational, very justifiable feelings under more control, to feel like you can control them to the point where now you still deal with that, but you can identify it. You know what it is. It doesn't have control over you anymore.
Exactly.
But for some of us, that might mean a little bit of maybe work with a therapist or a life coach or whatever works for you until you feel more like you can own those emotions a little bit more.
Yeah, and probably a first step with the pause is maybe until you get control of it, just say, hey, I'm a little uptight right now. I'm going to take a break and distance yourself.
Yes.
Because if you can do that, that is your first step.
That's good.
You took control, so you're just one step away from the pause.
It's true.
Where it's
very true.
So just recognizing it, because the things that make you angry, there's a concept in cognitive behavioral therapy called the ABC, so we can throw that out right now, and that's the antecedent event, the belief that you create for that event, and then the consequences of those beliefs. So just like we talked about traffic, the antecedent event is traffic.
Yes.
The belief is, I shouldn't have to deal with this right now, or I'm going to be late, or man, every freaking day. Those are the kind of things, those are the beliefs that you create. Whereas you could have in the same identical situation, you or anybody else could have the belief like, oh, this is going to be a long one.
Yeah.
Might as well put on my favorite songs and kick back and just take it. See, those are alternatives in your beliefs, and this applies to everything. So what you need to do is you need to examine, rather than the triggers, is go into those beliefs and identify a new belief. Hey, this happens every day. In fact, you could start reframing it to where traffic is more normal, and when it's not, you can be like, woohoo, hey, free ride today.
Exactly.
So you can actually like traffic is not even the worst case scenario. It's just the norm. This is how it is. And when it's open, it's like, all right, man, this is a great day. There's no traffic.
It's like a bonus.
Yeah, it's like a bonus. It's like a gift. So you can see how these things can reshape. And of course, the consequences are your response to those beliefs. And changing those beliefs, it's very, very helpful. I love reframing, and reframing is changing those beliefs. I love, and that goes back to the $100 experiment. If I gave you $100 to find an alternative to how you're thinking about that situation in the moment, give me an example right there. And that's all. I'm not even saying act on it. I'm saying give me something else you could think in this moment that wouldn't make you angry. And of course, we'd have to be doing this when you weren't in the midst
already angry.
Yeah,
Right,
because
right.
you can't think. And that's why I stress with the wellness thing in your notebook, if you put it in there, do it when you're clear. Do it when you're happy. If I start laughing at a TV show, I'll pull pull out my phone. My wife's seen me. I'll pull out my phone and I'll be like, what episode is this?
Yeah.
I'll type it in there so I have something to go to. And honestly, I don't even use it that much, because just knowing I have something to go to, it's like a safety net.
That's
a
good point.
Yeah, it's already there. I already have something that shows me I don't need to be angry. I've got all kinds of stuff that can entertain me right now. So things to think about.
So some practical examples to help you retrain your brain. You can use physical resets of taking a walk, doing some stretches, doing some breathing. Box breathing is something to look up. There's some really nifty little ways to kind of reduce your stress in the moment. If you need a mental reset and you have a little time, journaling triggers. This made me angry today, and here are the things that I was thinking. Actually writing these things down. Naming your emotions, like you said, go into the mirror or just verbalize it out loud, preferably if you're by yourself. Otherwise, people might get a little concerned. And then reframing, the magic of reframing those thoughts.
Yes, and like I said, that's my favorite tool.
Yeah.
Now, when you're helping somebody else, I just want to add this little PSA here. When you're helping somebody else with reframing, be careful when you're wording, and this comes from the crisis intervention side of the house.
Yes.
Because it can sound dismissive. So if you're telling somebody about traffic, it's like, well, what are you going to do about it? That's not really helpful. So think about what you want to hear in a situation where you're frustrated. Reframing is like, I always use questions. That way they can say, nah, that's stupid, and everything's, I can say, hey, have you ever thought about, maybe you could go a different way home, get some scenery, wake up those observational skills while you're driving. And when you ask it in a question, they can just dismiss it, and that's fine too. Because the worst thing you could do is give advice and then get mad when they don't take it.
Right.
Because that's not really advice. We'll talk about that later also. We have a show about that one, is unconditional assistance. Most people don't even ask for help because they know that they'll be obligated to that help. And I'm going off on a tangent here. That's a show for another day. But also remember, with the tools that Carolsue gave you, your brain has to be in the right place. If you're ruminating while you're breathing or naming emotions,
Yes.
and even when you're journaling, are you reliving that anger in that moment? Are you identifying it as data?
Are you reflecting?
Have you calmed yourself
Yeah,
down?
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because the one thing that we have to deal with, being even individuals that are crisis de-escalators, is we have to be careful not to re-traumatize the person when we're asking about what got you here kind of thing. So sometimes you can re-escalate somebody by asking them what caused the problem. Because they get all right into
That's
it.
right.
Well, it started
That's right.
with. And you're like, oh, no, I shouldn't have asked that question.
So we focus on using that pause to regain our calmness when we're feeling angry. But it's important to know that calmness doesn't mean you're not still angry about the thing that upset you. It just means that you're not letting the anger drive the train.
Yeah, anger is an identifiable emotion. How we express it, it's actually a separate thing. We have a lot of anger about certain things that are going on in our social climate right now.
We do.
Yeah, but we're not letting it dominate our lives. We see it in the news and we're like, that's terrible. And I think about all these situations, where people say, you should be outraged. Don't buy into that. There is a calm, articulate, and intelligent way of proceeding with these things that has no more emphasis than if you're showing anger, screaming, breaking things.
Yeah.
Every situation that you raise your voice to, that you throw things across the wall, there is an alternative way that is actually more constructive, sometimes more impactful than the anger emotion that you're showing.
So true.
A lot of people really don't know any alternative.
Yeah.
But when you sit back and think about it, you can be just as passionate, you can be just as frustrated, you can be just as angry about the events that are going around without having to express those emotions, because that, once again, like we said before, that's identifying that emotion is controlling you and not you controlling the emotions.
Yeah, absolutely.
So separate the anger feeling from the anger expression. You can have that. There's a lot of things that bother me, but it doesn't need to create a stress level in myself in order to try to figure out solutions. In fact, those expressions of anger, you brought this up earlier before the show, those expressions of anger actually degrade your ability to solve the problem. They actually get in the way of you making the situation better.
Oh, yay me.
Yeah, you brought that up earlier. I didn't want to forget about that.
Very good. All right, so some tools and reflection for us. So this week, I want you to think about, and we're going to do the same, we're going to think about our last 3 angry moments. And if you can't come up with 3, then kudos to you. That's awesome. But think about the last time you were feeling angry. What was underneath each of those moments? Because there's the anger that's at the surface, but it's usually touching on a different emotion or an older unresolved issue. So what was it triggering for you?
Yeah, so it's like, if you want to limit it to, I didn't like the way so-and-so said that to me, well, let's ask why.
Yeah.
Because it's not about what they said to you. It's what it meant to you and what it might have triggered, an old emotion or something like that. Or it could have been their expression. I mean, it could have been the way they expressed it. If it wasn't a personal issue or the way they talked to you, that could be the issue. But identify what it is. Identify why you respond to that.
And if there was more than one instance, were those triggers similar? Did it touch the same pain point for you? And if so, is that something worth exploring? Did 2 different instances make you feel like, well, nobody here at my job thinks I know how to do my job? Okay, then that's something that may be worth a little bit more research.
Yeah, but if you can get away from blaming anybody else for how you're feeling in that moment, that will be a good starting point.
That's a great start.
Yeah, because honestly, like I said at the beginning, that nobody likes to hear, nobody makes you mad. You decide to be mad based on your programming and what you are believing in that moment. And it's really important to try to lock that down. So we can call those things that do set you off as triggers, but go ahead and examine it. Don't try to fix it. Don't try to stop it after it happens, because like I said, phase 1, you're going to catch it after the fact.
Yeah.
So during phase 1, examine it. So why am I so sensitive to that? You have to look at these situations as it becomes a strength when you have complete self-control. One of the things that we identified in our original book is in Finding Your Honest Voice, we identified that we created what's called the super person. And the super person is this, because you got to have a model. You got to have, what do we want to ascribe to be?
What's the ideal?
Yeah, the ideal.
Yeah.
This might be a model of perfection, but it's not achievable. And we want that to be very clear, and we outline that in the book. If we were super people, we would be completely unflappable. People could call us every name in the book, and we'd be like, so what's driving that frustration? That might make somebody mad too. You never know when they're really angry.
That's right.
This person, stays calm in any kind of situation. It doesn't allow another person to provoke them in any capacity, because that's another thing. There's a lot of people that once they get into these conflicts with you, and this is why I made that comment about might make them more angry, is a lot of times people will start a fight or get into a fight and they'll do something that embarrasses them. And then if you stay calm, they'll try harder and harder to provoke you. And I've dealt with this personally, where they get meaner and uglier about it because they feel embarrassed, and they create the idea that if they can get you to basically lift off, then you've got a level playing field.
That's right.
So when that happens, you can call that out. And when I say call it out, you can say, hey, look, I know you're frustrated right now, but what could we do to not make this any worse? Like I said, phrase it in a question.
Yep.
And see if you can de-escalate that person. But the main thing is that identify what you think it is that made you angry about that, and start looking at alternative ways. Start training your brain to say, that's always triggered me, but I never looked at why. And then what's the alternative behavior? Because that's where we think the real change occurs, is when you start practicing a way of handling it that's different from the way you handled it before. That's where you start rewiring your brain to respond in such a different way than you have been all along. Because like we said, you were given this reaction. You were trained into this reaction of getting upset when things happen, to throw a fit, to yell, whatever it may be. And you've never had anybody tell you there's another way.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to do. So that's what we do in crisis intervention. We try to show alternative means of handling stress so it doesn't handle you.
That's right.
Yeah.
Perfect. So awareness is the key. we're taking the control back, something that has felt scary and uncontrollable up until now. We actually can reverse that course and get control over our anger, use it for the data that it is, for the information that it is, but manage it so that it doesn't take years off your life and damage relationships and other things like that.
Yeah. Stress is real. I mean, people that have serious anger issues don't live as long as the regular public. There's all kinds of physical issues, not to mention the massive amounts of cortisol you're constantly pumping through your body because you're provoking that anger response. All that does is wear your organs out. I mean, it ages you from the inside out. So it's to your benefit. And like I said, if you're part of a family system from any level of the hierarchy, if you can start modeling the behavior you want to see in the people around you, it's infectious, just like the anger is infectious.
That's so true.
The calmness is just infectious. And if you've got young kids, this is definitely what you want to model, because I know from personal experience the things that I didn't like the most in our son when he's growing up were the things that I gave him. A lot of times you see behaviors, and a lot of parents don't put this together. And I have been part of teaching parenting classes in one of my first jobs. Parents don't want to hear that they're actually supplying the behavior to their child and they're getting it back in a 5-year-old perspective, or a 6-year, 7, 10-year-old, 15-year-old perspective. But that's why a lot of parents don't recognize it, because it's going to look different coming from a teen. So it's easy to say, well, you didn't get that from me.
Right.
But it's very possible that they did, because they're going to do what you model, not what you say.
Yeah. So we look forward to hearing from you guys. We always love hearing what works. If you have questions about any of this, if you have specific experiences you want to share, we'll make sure you have our email addresses so you can email both of us together at talk@honestvoice.net.
Yeah, talk. If you want to keep it anonymous, you can be impersonal and just tell us. Don't say my name, and we'll definitely respect that. And if you're gonna respond and just say your anger episode made me angry, you don't need to tell us that. I'm just joking. No, we know a lot of this stuff can be frustrating, and we don't think that the kind of person that wants to use their anger to manipulate others. Like, I don't appreciate you putting this out to the world, because right now when I show anger to control other people,
I get what I want.
So don't make them know what I'm doing. I don't think you're watching.
I don't think you're still watching. No.
Yeah.
If you started, I don't think you're still here.
No, but if you are still here, recognize that. And I do have to caution you, pointing out behavior in other people does not make them change it. Okay, it's just a shame tactic. It's a condescension tactic. When you're like, you're being a bee right now, that doesn't make somebody suddenly go, you're right, I'm sorry, I'll change that behavior right now. I'm going to make new life choices so this never happens again.
That's why we focus on our own behavior and our own awareness. And once we gain control, we model that for others. And the only time we'll talk about this in a boundaries episode, but there will be times when you can put boundaries up to say, I'm not going to tolerate that around me. Yeah. But we find it not helpful to say, hey, excuse me very much, you are demonstrating anger and that's a weakness. So
that's weak. Yeah, and I'm like, oh man, you're right, man. I don't want to be like that. All right.
So thank you so much for being with us today. We hope this has been helpful, and we'll see you in our next episode.
Yeah, that's exciting. It's like, believe it or not, one of my favorite subjects, but you'll find out I'm sort of a nerd about that. All right, take care. We'll see you next time.